Thank you for joining us here at Lowry's Sports Rhetoric. I'm your host, Nathan.
And I'm Daimon.
And today we're going to be discussing Week 2 for the NCAA football.
Also known as Sun Belt Saturday.
Oh my gosh. What a fun weekend.
It was crazy. So we talked about Week 1 was just like ended up being 5 days of just nonstop football. I felt like there was like 3 weeks of football stuffed into one weekend yesterday.
Oh
it was
my gosh.
Unbelievable.
So much fun. I would say, as being a person who doesn't watch as much college football as Daimon, I tried to kind of take that upon myself this year and say I'm going to watch a lot more football. This was a week where I looked at the schedule and was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a boring week, but I'm dedicated. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Oh my gosh, that changed real quick.
Yeah, it felt like there was like 2 games worth watching, and then all of a sudden it turned into like
10.
So many games worth watching. So amazing, so much fun. So start with Sunbelt. Like I think to me that was the story of the day. So you had the first one was Georgia State almost beats North Carolina. They fall a touchdown short, but they almost beat North Carolina. Then the upstarts start happening. Appalachian State, Marshall beating Notre Dame. Oh, we gotta love that. Gotta love the green, the mean green of Marshall going in there and beating Notre Dame. And then we had to finish the night off, Georgia Southern beats Nebraska.
Yes.
So that's 4 upsets, or well, 1 close, 3 upsets of Sunbelt.
Oh, no, that's
of the Sunbelt. Then, if you're not paying attention to, there's a couple teams in the Sunbelt you really need to know about. On top of those other ones that pull those upsets, South Alabama. I've watched them 2 weeks in a row because I have guys on their fantasy team. They are playing outstanding. And James Madison, first year officially D1, or not D1, but championship series instead of subdivision, instead of bowl series. Man, they are killing it. They're chucking the ball all over the field. Their quarterback had like 200 yards in the first quarter. They are fun to watch. So the Sun Belt, amazingly, is one of the better conferences to watch this year. You know, they're not going to go to the playoff, but I bet you they're going to produce a lot of guys that we're going to be talking about in our draft video, and they are fun to watch. I can't wait for when the Sun Belt actually starts playing each other. They're just going out there and crushing all these Power 5 teams, and like the MAC teams that play the Sun Belt teams, no chance. That's who they played. So South Alabama played Central Michigan, who we talked about last week, who put up that huge score against Oklahoma State. South Alabama destroyed them. Looked way better against them than Oklahoma State did against them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this Sun Belt is
interesting.
Is for real. It's Sun Belt Saturday. It was great. I loved it.
That is interesting. I'll definitely start tuning into some of those games that, like I said, probably wouldn't have tuned into before. So people out here catching attention. Another team that caught my attention was, as I mentioned before, Washington State. I thought that was a fun game. I'd heard some hype about them this summer and kind of was interested because, you know, they're not always the funnest people to watch in the world.
Yeah.
And, man, they actually put up a show.
Right, and Wisconsin is supposed to be that team that maybe keeps the Ohio State Michigans honest on the other side of the thing, right? No.
Yeah, I mean, no,
not this year. And on top of that whole division, we talked about this before the video. Not only does Wisconsin lose, Iowa loses to Iowa State, and Nebraska obviously losing to Georgia Southern. Nebraska's looked terrible this year. I got a text from Peyton saying, "Is Scott Frost going to be fired?" And I said, "Do you mean tonight, tomorrow, or Monday?" Because that seems like it's inevitable. So that whole Big Ten West division just looks like a mess right now. Illinois looks like the best team in it, which is insane to say because they just fired Lovie Smith, and to think they might be the best team in the Western Division of the Big Ten, that's bonkers.
Really?
But they destroyed Virginia, so that was the one bright spot in that division. They destroyed Virginia. We talked about Virginia was like the darlings of the ACC last year.
Right.
Illinois just hammered them yesterday, so that was another surprising game that I wasn't expecting to see.
And then was it Illinois that played IU in the game before?
Yeah, IU beat Illinois last week.
Yeah.
And then IU struggled against Idaho. They ended up winning. They looked terrible in the first half. They ended up winning. But yeah, that's what I sent my buddy that's IU fan in Texas said, how is it possible that Illinois crushes Virginia and IU is losing to Idaho at halftime a week after IU beat Illinois? Like, it just seems crazy. It's crazy. It's college football. It's college football.
Indiana came back.
They handled their business. They took care of it in the second half.
But yeah, I could see that at that point in time.
It's a crazy thing to think that those things could happen a week apart. So
Yeah, and another thing I enjoyed was obviously watching my Ducks play. They obviously look better. It's against small competition, so it wasn't, I wasn't hugely like overblown, but there is some good stuff. I know that too. Our quarterback, he kind of
Bo Nix.
yeah, Bo Nix. Thank you. He does have the ability to make plays against smaller schools. Obviously, Georgia's just way better. But that was, it was still fun to watch us put 70-something points up.
And at this point, you guys are at home are all screaming like, why haven't they started talking about Texas Alabama? Because that was the big game, and that's true. That was the huge game. We're going to talk about it. But these other things were just surprises. We knew Texas Alabama was going to be an interesting game. We didn't know how good Texas was going to be. We didn't know the refs were going to completely screw them over. But we knew that it was going to be a good game. So let's talk about that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, Bama is. I don't know. I feel like they don't look as good as I thought they would be, but Texas really, really showed up, and I was curious about that too. That was another team where I've kind of been looking at, especially with the transfer of yours, thinking, man, what are they actually going to look like? How are they building? Because it seems like they've been kind of throwing some good players out there, recruits and stuff. And man, they came together yesterday. And even though they lost, which was really sad.
So Ernst gets knocked out, and then the backup quarterback is playing like on a hobbled leg.
Yeah.
And they still take Bama. They should have probably won.
They should have won.
They probably should have won.
Yeah.
If either one of those guys is healthy, I think they win.
If yours was healthy, I think they would have destroyed them. It seemed like.
It seemed like they were on the way to.
He was unstoppable when he was on the field.
And last week's video, I talked about how great Bryce Young looked, how it looks effortless, where he looks like Steph Curry out there just doing whatever he wants. Not so much against Texas's defense.
Oh no.
Not so much against Texas defense.
They look very impressive.
Very impressive. And Oklahoma hasn't played a big name school yet, but they are dominating despite the fact that they have a new staff. So I don't know what I'm seeing from not that I haven't been banging the SEC's overrated drum for like ever, but I don't think Oklahoma and Texas look that bad. I think they're going to add to the SEC, not detract from it.
Oh, for sure.
And so let's talk about SEC. Last week we were both enamored with Florida.
Oh yeah,
dudes they had, the quarterback they have, and
he did not look as good.
Stoops brings in the fighting Wildcats.
Yeah, it didn't.
The basketball, the also rans for the basketball school, and just what is going on in Kentucky?
Yeah.
Those boys look nasty.
Yeah,
hungry.
So you think it is Kentucky looks better, or do you think Florida just isn't as good as they looked the week before?
I think that Stoops has done an incredible job of slowly building a program. He got to go to a place where they don't really care about the football team, so that's good and bad because it allowed him to not have the pressure of having to win right off the bat. And over the last few years, he's gotten them better and better every year. And yeah, I thought they looked good. I think we might have overreacted to the Florida beating Utah because Utah was so highly ranked. Utah's a good team. I don't know that they should have been top 10.
They shouldn't have been. I agree.
And so
I'm a fan of theirs.
Right, and I think there was an overreaction of Florida beating a top 10 team, and the fact that everybody wants Florida to be, it's the same with Florida State.
I suppose that does play into it.
As soon as one of those teams wins a game, you get excited. So I think there was an overreaction to how good Florida actually is, but Kentucky's a real team. Yeah, if I'm, I don't think I want to play Kentucky if I'm, Tennessee didn't look good against Pitt.
Yeah.
If I'm Tennessee, I don't want to play Kentucky. If I'm Arkansas, I don't want to play Kentucky. If I'm pretty much anybody other than Alabama and Georgia, I don't think I want to play Kentucky because those guys look good. Arkansas, since I brought it up just now, I think Arkansas looks really good. I really like their quarterback. I don't know if he's a pro, but he is a heck of a college quarterback.
Sure. Yeah, they definitely look good.
That's the team that looked good. Their running back was just torching people.
And Spencer Rattler didn't look good.
Spencer Rattler has trouble with, he needs like Spider-Man catch radius is what he needs because he likes to overthrow the ball.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I know when he was at Oklahoma, I was never really impressed with him. I know I pissed a lot of people off when I said that. And then,
the problem with him, I think, is like, you can see he's got the talent, but for some reason he can't handle pressure. Whether that be defensive pressure, crowd noise,
sure.
Wherever there's like internal pressure, it feels like from the outside looking in, he doesn't handle that so well.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
And so like when they're playing
physically there,
but like if they're playing a team that's not so good, or they get a lead early that takes the pressure off, then he looks like a pretty darn good quarterback. But the rest of the time, it's overthrowing dudes by 8 feet and looking like he's a chicken with his head cut off, running around. Absolutely. Not so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not so good.
Absolutely. But yeah. I mean, I do feel like Arkansas looks like a good team too.
Yeah, for sure. I thought maybe the game of the day, honestly, like there were some fun games, but the game that like reminded me a little bit of Utah Florida last week was Baylor BYU. Yeah,
That was a lot of fun to watch,
Yeah.
and obviously I want BYU to do good so that next week when they come into Oregon we can try to maybe make a case for us being involved back in the top 25. But so they did, they pulled that out. But man, that was a fun game to watch, and I didn't quite know which way it was going to go pretty much the entire time.
You know what's interesting when you think Baylor BYU, you don't think defensive battle.
Sure.
But both of those defenses are really good.
Yeah.
I think both of those defenses are really good.
Yeah.
And the offenses weren't as good as maybe I thought they would be. Or maybe that's just because both defenses are so good. It's hard to tell.
I could definitely see that. It's really the first time I've had a chance to check out that kid from BYU. I guess he played last year. He was a starter last year. I didn't watch much of them last year, so I watched, but I was keeping an eye on him last night. Yeah, it struggled a little bit, there's for sure, but you're definitely right. It could be just that he was playing up against a really good defense, but offensively there was some struggling going on there. But
yeah, and Baylor, same thing with the Baylor quarterback. Like he's there was a lot of hype about him in the offseason that he was going to have a big year. They looked really good last week.
Yeah, he struggled for sure.
He struggled. He struggled, and I don't know how much of that is BYU's defense is just a legit defense.
Which, I mean, I think from the eye test, BYU specifically, their defense looked good. I mean, I like the way they looked. They were flying all over the ball. They were putting a lot of pressure on. I liked them a lot. So,
let's see, what else was there? So at the same time, we talked about this earlier. The Fresno State Oregon State game is going on. I have that on the big TV. I have the big TV and the good TV. The big TV had that one. The good TV had the Baylor BYU game, and I'm just because it was, especially the last like half hour of those games, they were kind of going back and forth simultaneously. Both teams going back and forth at each other. That was so much fun. Like it's when you get two games going at the same time like that, where it's just nonstop action on both games. To me, that's just the best thing ever. And it was a ton of fun watching those. I think Oregon State is better than I would have expected. So like when we're talking like. I think the Pac-12 has been more impressive than it has been in a while.
I actually feel a lot that way.
Like Utah and Oregon didn't
looks like it's pretty good.
Right, like Utah and Oregon didn't look as good as maybe I thought they would be.
Sure.
So that top isn't as high as I thought, but the bottom is a lot better than what I thought as far as like Oregon State, Washington State, like you said, Cal.
Washington's played good.
Stanford looks rough.
Oh yeah, USC looks
dominant.
They look dominant.
They look dominant. But I think the thing is they will actually, if they go through that undefeated, it will actually mean something. Because some of these teams are better than they have been in the last few years.
Yeah.
Washington's another one you just said. Like, yeah, I mean, we talked about that was the team that we were going to be interested in because they have the former IU offensive coordinator,
Penix.
former IU quarterback, and yeah, they're getting the job done so far. I think they look good.
Yeah, I mean they do. I agree. I think I've been pleasantly surprised. Like I said, I think I would like to see some more from UCLA, having some tougher competition.
Yeah, UCLA didn't look fantastic, but they weren't playing anybody.
Yeah, but I mean, they look better than they have. That's for sure. I mean, they haven't looked good at all. So it's interesting. So yeah, it's interesting looking around. Like I said, with Washington State, looking around the Pac-12, I do feel like for me, very specifically, keeping an eye on them. Now Arizona State and Arizona, not so much. Like
yeah, but when you look at just like this non-conference, 2 weeks so far, a little early. This isn't like a final take. I'm not declaring anything here, but early thoughts. That middle to low end of the Pac-12 is outperforming that middle to low end of the Big Ten, the ACC, and the SEC.
I agree.
Now the Big 12, maybe not.
No.
Because the Big 12 seems like they're getting it done too. Like even like Kansas and West Virginia was a great. We didn't even talk about that one. That was one of the early set games. They were going back and forth with each other, left and right. A lot of offense. Kansas for a long time has just been a joke. Kansas State looks a lot better than they have in a while.
I thought they looked a lot better.
Iowa State beating Iowa. Texas Tech beating Houston. So like that mid to low part of the Big 12 is looking stronger. The mid to low pack of the Pac-12 is looking stronger. Where at the same time, the ACC, Big 10, and the SEC, that lower part does not look good. They're getting beat by Sun Belt teams. They're getting beat by MAC teams, or at least being competitive with MAC teams. So I think that's an interesting, for years now it's been the other way around, where it's the Big 10, the ACC, and the SEC are the big three. They're the deep teams. They're the strong conferences, and those other two are jokes. It feels like there's a little shift going on that, at least so far, 2 weeks in.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
I want to know too if Texas. We didn't talk. I'm going to go back to this because I just thought about it. So for years, I've seen like LSU be a terrible team that wasn't any good, lose to Alabama by 1 point, and move up in the polls. So does Texas move up in the polls because they lost to Alabama by 1 point? Because if they were an SEC's team, they would.
Well, I can tell you this: they should. They should absolutely, because, like I said, even from the eye test, you can look at this team and be like, "Oh, okay, Texas is good. Like Texas is a damn good team." So, and I'm telling you, man, if yours would have been the whole game, oh my gosh, jeez.
So far, I think the things that kind of stand out to me is BYU could be interesting, especially if they beat you guys.
Well, I'm really hoping we beat them. So
they could run the table though, and make things interesting for the selection committee, right?
Yeah. No, I'm ready. I'm ready for the Ducks to play spoiler.
I feel like USC, Ohio State look dominant, and so far Georgia looks better than Alabama.
I mean, I think Georgia looks extremely impressive. But I agree with all of that. And
so unfortunately for the Big 12, they're probably going to beat each other up. This is going to be my guess, but we'll see. Especially, I don't know. So
Oklahoma looks pretty good too.
It'll be interesting to see BYU playing like Texas and Oklahoma, and not BYU. I'm sorry, not BYU. Baylor playing Texas and Oklahoma, and see how that all stacks up. So like BYU needs Baylor to like do well against Texas and Oklahoma, so it makes that win really be something. And I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I think Baylor's got a decent team.
It's not going to matter when they got the loss to the Ducks.
Okay. That's our preview for next week.
That's our preview for next week.
Anything else that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, like I honestly like. I think what stood out to me the most is how much fun I had watching it. Again, like I said, I'm not as big into college as you are. I've watched a couple teams I kind of keep an eye on, but because we're doing this, I'm kind of trying to watch a little bit more. And that was, I think, probably the most coolest thing that stood out to me was that like. I said I went into this week looking at that schedule and going like, oh, what kind of garbage is all this? Like,
that's college football though.
I know. I loved it. It was fun. I know there's not always going to be weeks like that. I know there's going to be some weeks where it is kind of boring.
You know what it'll be the week that you think there's like six games on the schedule that look really good.
Yeah.
And they're all going to be duds.
Just all blowouts.
They're all going to be duds. And we're going to be sitting here talking about some MAC team that went to triple overtime.
It's like when people are like, oh, that BYU Oregon game is going to be pretty good, and then Oregon beats them like 43 to 10.
So I just had a thought. There was a game, and I don't even know who was playing it, but there was a game that went to 7 overtimes. Even with this new rule where it's all 2-point conversions. So like the score wasn't that high, but they went to 7 overtimes. And I don't even know who it was because there was so many fun things going on that it was just like I just caught it on the box score and like don't even remember who was playing. And the game went to 7 overtimes. Normally that would have been the lead of what we would have been talking about. Did you see this game that went to 7 overtimes? There was so much going on yesterday. I don't even remember who played that game.
All the upsets. Anyways, I have to go ahead and declare like it's going to be difficult for a week, I think, to be funner than this.
Much fun.
But so for 2022, week 2, Sunbelt
Saturday. I would have made T-shirts for it. Sunbelt Saturday, 2022. Yeah. It was
anyways, I hope you guys had as much fun watching college football as we did this weekend. It was a blast, and just had a great time.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed us talking about how much fun we had watching college football, hit that subscribe button and the like button, and hit us in the comments. Right?
Hit us comments below. Let us know. Did you have fun? What stood out to you the most this weekend? Thanks for giving us a watch.
We'll see you next week.